Is a little overview of log files. Now, of all the things that an IT administrator would do, in my opinion, understanding where to go to troubleshoot is probably one of the most critical things you need to understand. And the place you will go, more often than not, is the log files to see what is happening in a log file. Now, what is a log file? Well, a lot of times there are processes that run that like to record the state of themselves to a file. Such as Apache, a web server, can record things like if it's running correctly, if there's any errors, access logs, who's been accessing it, stuff like that. So this is an important and essential task. Now, in Linux, at least in this Ubuntu version that we're using, the most common location to find these log files is in /var/log. So you'll see things like Apache, cron, and syslog there. Let's go ahead and look at that for a second. So ls var/log, you can see here. These are a bunch of log files and then some archived or compressed log files. So we've got a Dmessage log file. We've got some authentication, who's tried to log in. We've got some logs from the kernel, apparently, the syslog. And I don't have many other processes running here, but certainly if I had a web server or maybe a database or something else running on here, we could then see some of those logs as well. So let's come back here for a moment. Dmessage. What is Dmessage? Well, those are logs from the kernel. It's also found in varlog dmessage. One thing that I point out here, and we're not going to look at every type of log message that there is, or log file, we should say, but dmessage is interesting because this records a lot of the things that happen as your machine boots up and as the kernel loads. So, I don't know, dmessage, and we'll grep for, I don't know, SDA or something like that. So look at the drives and the partitions that it found and that sort of thing. But a couple things I'll point out is here I am using the grep command to filter my output again, as I did in the last video. But this could be useful as I'm analyzing my system and looking at what problems that might have occurred on the system. I could use that. I could also, and this is probably the most important thing, is figuring out how to view and filter the contents of my log file. So here we can use any of these various commands and others. Cat command to view the content, grep, filter, head, maybe show the first few lines, tail, the last few lines, less, that sort of thing. So as I come here, maybe I'll do a dmessage and pipe it to head so I can see the first few lines, or maybe I'll pipe it to tail and say give me the last 20 lines, something like that. Or maybe I'll go into var log and maybe I'll look at syslog. Now some of these will require sudo permissions, so let's var log syslog, and I can see maybe some DHCP stuff in there. I can navigate up and down. Mostly it looks like DHCP stuff, but there was a cron thing in there, so let's cat out var log syslog. Maybe that's, oops, syslog, and grep -i says I don't care about the case of the word cron, and so I can see some cron stuff that's run. That's a quick overview of log files. It's important to understand and know how to search through those log files.